Sometime.
Somewhere.
Someone is likely to offer you drugs.
It may happen with friends.
At school, at a party.
Or just by chance.
It may have already happened to you or someone you know.
There are many illegal substances
which provide what is described as a high
or good feeling. Marijuana.
The drug which is often the starting point or gateway to addiction.
Cocaine, prescription drugs.
And now an old drug in new packaging.
Heroin.
Heroin is the latest poison stealing the lives of members of our generation,
our community, and our families.
It can be snorted,
smoked, or injected by a needle.
A button of heroin is a small amount of the drug in powdered form,
placed inside a capsule, which can be opened by the user.
The drug itself comes cheap.
But the price being paid by the user, their families, and society is much too high.
It's important that you see the real story of what heroin does.
How it hurts.
How it destroys.
And how even providing it for someone else
can bring an end to your future.
Even if you never try it.
The images you will see are real.
The heartache being expressed is sincere.
The consequences of saying yes to heroin are devastating.
Everyone involved in this project.
Everyone.
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 Everyone in this project hopes you are listening.
He just would stare off into space for an hour or so and wouldn't even acknowledge you.
He'd come over for holidays. He came last Christmas, and he actually must have just done it right before he got there because he fell asleep over his plate while he was eating his food.
Like so many drug users, the gateway to drug abuse for Jesse was marijuana, starting at age 16. He would move to prescription drugs like Xanax and on to heroin, which would consume him.
It's like he wasn't even here, you know? He was here, but he wasn't. His mind, he was off in some other land. And
you're going to be very lethargic, non-caring, no ambition, very slow in your speech, and just no outward cares about what's going on with you, your life, your family. What the drug does is works on the central nervous system as a depressant. It slows your system down, and eventually you just stop breathing when you had too much of it. So that's the ultimate effect of the heroin.
It's so disturbing because unlike crack cocaine or cocaine powder, heroin is the most dangerous drug because people who get heroin buttons, they don't know what it's cut with. It could be cut with fentanyl. It could be cut with Vicodin. It could be cut with just plain flour. That's the best case scenario. But if the dealer or your friend is cutting it with some other substance, it just increases the toxicity of what you're injecting into your body. And it's also, unfortunately, heroin is the most addictive opiate of the opiate groups. So it doesn't take very long to become a heroin addict.
And we have heard from kids, well, when it comes to the needle, then I'll stop. No, you won't. It's extremely addictive. And when I say extremely addictive, there was a study done that was released by DEA that of 100 people that went into a 1-year lockdown for rehab on heroin, only 5 of those 100 people didn't go back to that drug. So if you don't think it's addictive, you are sadly mistaken.
No, nothing would scare him away from it, and he knew it could happen, and you just don't care. The drug takes over.
Jesse's addiction would force him into the home of his grandparents, where his need for the drug would lead him to steal from and threaten his grandparents to supply the habit.
When he was on it, he swore up and down on his love for me that he was not on heroin anymore. He would crush it up, put some kind of liquid in it, and then put it in the needle. And then he'd put it on his arm. But he never had marks on his arms. So where he put the needle at, I don't know.
Too much of the drug causes an overdose. With heroin, the respiratory system of the user can shut down. Heroin overdoses would put Jesse in the hospital 4 times, with the results the same.
It was just horrible because to get that phone call, yeah, this is so-and-so at a hospital. We have your son or your brother in ICU. because he had an overdose, and just then being actually there when he wakes up and him not knowing anything that's going on. He just wanted to get out of the hospital so that he could go get his next fix.
Makes you feel helpless because there's nothing you can do to help him. Seeing curled up in the kids, he'd be curled up in the fetal position. And just helpless. And then you'd sit there and wait for him to start coming to again, and knowing that he's not going to change anything.
The end for Jesse would come on June 13th, 2011.
And I found him on the floor. He was slumped over where he'd sleep like that sometimes because his back hurt him. And his fingernails was already gray. He had vomit coming out of his nose and his mouth. And I rolled him over trying to, because he told me last time, to make sure he hadn't swallowed his tongue. And I knew he was dead because I couldn't get a pulse. And his face was already swelling up.
We lost him and had to bury him and everything. And so just because you think that you're not going to get addicted to it, the addiction of heroin is, you try it once and you're going to be wanting to go back for more. And then you're going to keep wanting to get that fix and that high. And it's going to get to the point where you can't do anything about it anymore. And you're going to be waking up from overdoses in the hospital and not know how you got there or anything else like that. And then eventually it's going to lead to death.
Jesse is just one victim in this story, a story that grows more alarming each year.
The heroin, is exploded. In 2008, we had 5 heroin overdose deaths. In 2009, we had 7. In 2010, we had 18. So that's an explosion.
The coroner's office is responsible for investigating overdose deaths, with the victims ranging in age from 17 to 63.
We've had 2 cases where it was a first-time user that died. They just didn't overdose and they got them to a hospital. They died the first time they used it. That has to be the warning that's out here for people. This is a dangerous, dangerous drug that you're dealing with. You never know what the quality of that drug. You may be snorting an 85% pure piece of heroin. There's no Angie's List that you can call and say, hey, is this a reputable drug dealer? You know, has he delivered any drugs that's killed anybody? You don't have that option. So you're dealing with street people. You don't know what you're getting. And trust me, one time can kill you.
You might be saying, my friends wouldn't let that happen to me.
Well, there are no friends in the drug community. Let me assure you of that. There are no friends in the drug community. And if you think you got one, you're going to find out, painfully so, that they're not your friend.
This young Madison County man probably thought his friends would take care of him when he suffered his overdose. Instead, they dumped him in a cemetery where he died from an overdose that would have been treatable had they taken him to the hospital. Which leads to another risk of becoming involved with heroin, even if all you do is give the drug to a friend.
A friend would not give another friend something that would poison them. So you wouldn't be a friend. But anyone who transacts in drugs, anyone who does a hand-to-hand transaction or delivers drugs to someone thinking they're simply doing them a favor, they may end up killing them, and they very likely are going to be on the end of prosecution.
That includes federal prosecution.
For possessing heroin, you're typically looking at 5 years mandatory minimum at 85%, which means you're going to do at least 4.5 years or more for mere possession, and that's the minimum sentence. You could do 20, 30, depending on what your prior records is. If you give somebody heroin and they use it and it results in their death, you can be held liable, criminally liable, for that death. And the sentence in that instance is a mandatory 20 years to life. It's a very simple case to prove. We don't have to prove that you intended their death. We don't have to prove that you went out to murder them. We just have to prove that you distributed, which means give, convey, sell, transfer an illegal substance like heroin, and they died from using it.
So the choice is yours.
Listen to what I'm telling you. I don't want you to be a client of the Madison County Coroner's Office. Listen to what I just said. One time. We've had 2 deaths that people died using it just for the first time. This is a deadly drug. It's a highly addictive drug. It is not a fun social thing to be doing at a party, and it will affect your life. It will affect your family's life, and ultimately, if you stay on it, I will see you.
If you're curious, just remember that curiosity can kill. And all of the dead bodies that we have in Madison County, the people who've died from this, they're a testimony to you that this can kill. Even if it doesn't kill you, be assured that we will be coming for you. If you're involved in the drug trade in any way, if you're involved in the use of drugs, this is going to have an impact on your life, because we will not stop in our efforts to protect our community, to protect families, and to protect our schools. So I ask you, don't do it, because if you do, we will be coming for you.
Any type of drugs are going to ruin your life, and some of them eventually, heroin especially, can eventually kill you. Don't let the other kids force you into doing something that can ruin your life. Drugs are nothing but bad, and you deserve more for yourself.